Yeah, cool. Guys and girls, welcome to our third meetup of Q2. So this is actually quite cool. This is actually the really fun meetup. Well, they're all fun, but this one's actually funner. It's the community demos. So it's where we get to see the really cool things that everyone has been building and just to see what is happening in the community, just to see some cool people and to have a bit of fun. Cool. So as I mentioned, this is our third meetup of the quarter. So our quarter's theme has been around programmable banking cards. So a lot of stuff has been around our bounties, about cards. We've seen a lot of boards around cards. So that's actually pretty cool. Our agenda is really packed with a lot of things. So we'll try to get through as much as we can. But again, this is your space. This is your meetup. So please feel free to ask questions, get involved, get engaged. Don't just let the guys just talk and talk and talk. Feel free to, get involved if you feel the need to. And I promise you, it is going to be worth it. There's some cool stuff that we're doing. So we've got Dom up first, who's going to walk us through a really cool community board that he's been playing around with. Then we've got Stephen, who's been working really hard on, I don't know, a lot of guys who have been in the community for a while know about the Spreadsheet banking and the journey it's been on. Stephen and Craig and all of the guys have been really involved in building out that vision that the community had from the beginning. So that's really cool. And then Hennie is going to talk to us about some really cool things around with the virtual cards and the API that hopefully is coming into production pretty soon. So we'll see some cool things there. Is there anything else? You guys happy with the agenda? You want to add to the agenda? It's going to be pretty quick. Happy? Steve's happy. Everyone's happy. Dom's happy. Awesome. Cool. So our first demo that comes up is Dom. You ready? You cool?
Yeah. Cool. I'm cool. I'm ready. Can everyone hear me? Firstly, just want to make sure. Yeah, cool. Cool. So I'm Dom. I'm part of the Programmable Banking Community Core team. And basically, I built a little something called Budget Breeze. Don't ask me about the name. It came about. So basically, this whole ideation came around when Nick and myself were chatting after our previous Capture the Flag session that we had. There was a member in the community that was looking for a way to manage their spend and their budgets quite tightly, but specifically related to cards. And he had the issue where, he couldn't find a way to control or manage the budget with his card as well as with his wife's card, because his wife spends on different things and he spends on different things, and they were just sort of like struggling to manage their budget in that regard. So this naturally led to myself and Nick chatting about one or two things. And yeah, the idea just sort of generated for this little community build called Budget Breeze, which is initially just some code that you can copy and paste into the Investec IDE, deploy it to your card, and you can, see your transactions and budget them, et cetera, et cetera. So yeah, that's pretty much it in a nutshell. Cool. Next slide, Nick. So that's the link to the repo. There's also been comms in the Programmable Banking Slack channel as well. Basically, the gist of it is that you have the env.json file in your Investec IDE. And within that, you have your categories and your spend for your categories. And basically, whenever you swipe your card, it verifies against that category coming in from the merchant against the spend that you've set. So we also wanted to highlight the fact that Investec updated the API to allow you to update your environment variables for your card. So you can sort of, we were dabbling with the fact of having it as feature flags as well, potentially. And this is great because, if you make a change to the code for your card, you always have to go and deploy the code to your card again. So with this, you can have the code sitting on your card and you just make a simple API call to update your environment variables and you are good to go. So how it works, and the gist of it is how it works, is that transaction comes in based on the merchant. It does some categorization using some simple JavaScript. This works in the before transaction method for the programmable cards. And based on the category that you've used and the spend that you've set, it either declines or accepts the transaction. So next slide, Nick, please. So this is going to be my little bit of a demo, just because things usually go wrong. So the demo guides will allow me to not be involved with this one. So I've set my two environment variables. I've got groceries and food and drink. I've got my categories up on top, which is just some constants. And I've got a get categories method that just pulls the category based on the merchant code. I do a little bit of logic to compare the cents amount. I've added my merchant name as Starbucks. I've changed my cents value to not hit here to my environment variable. And then you'll basically see that my transaction has successfully failed. So cool. That's pretty much it. We've kept it at the fact that the categories can be customizable as well. So everyone's spend and everyone's utilization is completely different. Especially if you're using it for business or if you're using it for personal, your categories are completely different. So we highlighted that in the README as well to make sure that the users understand that they can edit their categories for what they need. Cool. Next slide, Nick. So next steps, and this is all well and good because you know, like it's all well and good to have a budget, but you have to really like work backwards for this because it's limiting you on a single swipe. And you have to work back and sort of say, well, for example, groceries, if I have a budget of X, I need to have a swipe limit of Y. So we wanted to evolve this to more of a monthly budget. So instead of just working on a daily or a swipe spend, we wanted it to be a monthly spend. And in order for that to happen, you need to somehow capture all your transactions. So what I decided to use was a platform called Make. And Make basically just creates these workflows or these scenarios where you can have webhooks and data stores and everything's on the cloud. So you don't need to essentially write your whole entire backend for you. Next slide, Nick. So the evolution of this was two types of scenarios that I would use that I've built with Make. So in the first scenario, we've got the after transaction, which basically within the after transaction, all I do is I connect to a webhook on Make and I post the category and the amount as well as the date. I think I've evolved it to the date recently. And that basically just presents a data store. So I'm storing the category, the spend amount, and the date that's happened. And that just holds all the core data. Then in the before transaction method, it's a little bit more complex, but what I'm doing is I'm posting off the category to a webhook. The webhook then goes into the data store, it fetches the category, it filters it, and then it sums up the total spend for that category. I'm sending that payload back to the before transaction and I'm doing a comparison with the environment variable saying, okay, so for this category, your monthly spend is this. Are you within that monthly spend? Can the transaction go through or will the transaction be declined? So that's the two scenarios that I've sort of set up on Make. Nick, next slide. So this is how the scenarios look. If you've played around with Make before, this will look very familiar. If you haven't, it's just a step-by-step process, and it basically allows you to have a backend. So you can obviously build an entire backend for this. That's very, very possible, and that's the first route that we actually wanted to go down. But with this, I wanted to make it easy for someone with a technical and non-technical background to sort of come in and say, oh, so you have this. How did you set it up? You do it with screenshots. You know, you don't need to deploy anything. Everything's on the cloud. You just create a simple account and it's for free. So the first image that you see on the left-hand side, that's part one of the webhook. So for the after transaction method, it will utilize this webhook, which just simply stores the transactions. Then the second image on the right-hand side, you've got the webhook that receives the category. It filters based on the category from the data store. Then it formats it to JSON, and then the webhook just responds, sends it back. So it's about 90% there at this moment in time. What I realized that there is a little bit of a limitation with Make is that it's not as great as a custom backend would be. So for example, you're able to filter and you're able to group, but you are not able to sum. So at the moment, the biggest problem that I've got. Sorry about that. My phone just decided to ring during this presentation. So the limitation that I've got at the moment is that everything's filtering and the JSON is being returned, but the problem is that it's not able to sum. So I need to create another custom module within that data store before I format it to basically sum everything. So there's a little bit of limitations here and there. And for example, the image on the right-hand side, Make only allows you to have 4 modules within a scenario, according to the free tier. So I need to do something custom there. But basically, this is going to probably go ahead, I would say, in the next week or so. Well, sorry, not in the next week or so, but in the next coming weeks. It'll be 99% there, and I'll probably push it up onto the Budget Breeze repo. So we'll have just like the normal main.js file and env.json file that people can copy and paste. And then I'll have a main monthly and an env monthly.json file, and it's for bigger categories, etc. And then, yeah, you deploy the code and basically just update everything with your environment variables from the API. So yeah, this is kind of the next evolution of Budget Breeze. So yeah, that's it.
Very cool. Nice.
Cool. Any questions, guys? Any questions about it that you guys like to have?
Hi, it's Peter here. Yeah, that's quite cool. And I'm assuming that you and your wife can share the same Make account, and that's how your budget is shared.
Yeah, well, so you can have one Make account that can facilitate both cards. So essentially, you'll just copy and paste the code directly onto the Investec IDE, deploy it to your card and your wife's card, and it will just keep track of everything. You can make it so that, for example, the image on the left-hand side, you can add an extra category to say like wife's card, my card, or whichever. So you can differentiate your transactions out if you want to. So yeah, essentially it will be one Make account that you can use to run both of these scenarios. So yeah.
Could this be implemented on other platforms similar to Make, like if then that?
Yeah, of course. The reason why I use Make, Devin, part of the community team, he used Make also to show some awesome stuff that he was doing with Telegram bot and notifications and things like that. I also wanted to use Airtable for this, and Make also hooks up into Airtable. So it's not limited to Make at all. This is just the direction that I decided to follow. But essentially, anything that can have a webhook that you can post to, or that you can call from within, make a request from within the Investec cards, you can utilize. So it's not limited to Make at all. And if you have any other suggestions, please just hit me up. I'm happy to explore them as well. I think it'll be quite cool.
Have you reached the limit of the free tier, or is there more space to play with?
There's more space to play with. So for example, you can create as many scenarios as you want, but each scenario can only have 4 modules. So for example, like webhook, data store, JSON, and webhook again. So for a scenario, you can only have 4 modules. So I haven't exceeded that tier yet. Will I exceed it? I don't know, but I think at the moment, everything, I should stay within that free tier.
Nice work.
Then,
Nick,
Nick, you
sorry,
got your hand up.
you had your hand up.
yeah.
Cool. Nice one, Dom. I just wanted to ask if you are able to let me know how long that timeout is for the before transaction. Like, how long do you have to do a little calculation before? I mean, does the card reject you after a while? What happens there?
I actually haven't hit a timeout yet. Maybe someone from the investing can speak if there's a
So
timeout.
Nick,
from a visa perspective, so we've negotiated that Lambda execution time from when our backend systems gets it all the round trip back into, we've got basically a 2-second SLA. If you exceed the 2-second, the transaction will just flow into the rest of the fraud checks and the balance checks, etc. So it basically just continues. Yeah.
Okay. Okay, that's great. Cool. Thanks, Hennie.
Yeah, I haven't hit that that delay at all. Yeah, the webhooks are very, very fast, I must say. So yeah, even when I was debugging as well, I didn't hit any delays. So yeah, but I mean, anything can happen once you live, I guess, right? So yeah, I'm definitely going to be testing it out though. I do want to go and literally swipe my card and physically do it without, instead of using this simulation. So yeah, I'll definitely see how that timeout works.
Sure.
Guys, if there's anything more that you want to ask Dom, please feel free to use the chat. He's on Slack also. And as a reminder, the community apps that Dom's been building and putting onto our community wiki, they're all there for you guys. We'd really love your feedback on it. They're basic stuff, but with your help, we can build it out into something really cool. And if you got any feedback, please let us know to make it better and more easier for everyone else. So that's really the idea around these community apps. They're not for one sort of human being. They're literally for you to contribute, to try out, to test, to let us know, does this work for you? Does it not work for you? And that sort of thing. So yeah, and really great work, Dom. Nice one.
Cool. Awesome.
Moving on. Stephen, you ready for your demo?
I think so. We'll see.
Awesome.
Maybe I should have learned from Dom and created a GIF of my demo, because yeah, we'll see if the demo gods are with me today or not. So hey, I'm Stephen. First thing I should say, resonating with Dom, the name Spreadsheet Banking. Yeah, that was something that we just very quickly came up with. The terms that are being thrown around rather on Excel add-in and things like that, it's just the name that stuck. So I can relate with that, Dom. Just to give you a brief history for those who don't know, Spreadsheet Banking began in partnership with OfferZen and Investec, I think last year, March or April, where people found a use case for users who would usually export their transaction history as CSVs from Investec Online. So a pretty manual process for something very simple, just getting your transactions in a spreadsheet. And so they were doing this in CSV format. And so initially we solved this problem by creating a secure spreadsheet and essentially owning that spreadsheet for the user within a SharePoint drive, and then injecting transactions, their transaction histories into that through the three-legged auth process and acting on behalf of the user. But that presented some challenges. Us owning the spreadsheet and owning only one spreadsheet, there were possible privacy concerns, as well as concerns around if the user made any changes to the spreadsheet, especially locally, on their desktop, then as soon as that's synced up through OneDrive or SharePoint, would that then mess with the way that we're reading from that spreadsheet? So there were a few limitations, but it did prove the concept that it's a little simpler and more seamless than downloading CSVs, and that you can keep this sort of in sync with your transaction history seemed beneficial. So then came the Excel add-in. I think you can go to the next slide. I don't know these off by heart, but yeah. So then we decided to move from owning the spreadsheets to an Excel add-in or an Office add-in. So Microsoft has this Office.js API. I think it's currently version 1.1, which allows you to tap into certain native operations within their applications, whether that be Microsoft Teams or Word or Excel, and they expose the sort of global property Excel. You say Excel.window or Excel.this, and you can create tables, you can create spreadsheets. That's essentially what an add-in does. It allows you to interact with a document through this little web app that runs within the Excel spreadsheet. That's really all it is. So this provides more flexibility. It's a little bit more private because you own the spreadsheet, you own the add-in, you give access to the add-in, and you can have this on any spreadsheet you want. So as soon as you've got the add-in, you can open up 10 different spreadsheets and access that add-in on 10 different spreadsheets. So it seems a little more flexible. It also allows users to use Excel locally, possibly further down the line, possibly even on their iPad or a tablet device. So there's, like it's cross-platform. Yeah, and then people can share those spreadsheets with people, as opposed to the secure spreadsheet that we own where only one person can access it. So that's why we decided to go for an office add-in. Next slide. This is just a diagram to make me look smart. Okay, so this is maybe just to explain the relationship between the add-in, the user, Investic, Microsoft, all those things. So the user is that really skinny person all the way up there on the left in the pink. Okay, that's them interacting with their spreadsheet, which would be down in the blue blocky over there, the Excel add-in, and the add-in communicates with the local Excel spreadsheet itself. Then the spreadsheet has a token for that user to identify the users being logged in, pass that to the add-in, so the add-in essentially signs them in with Microsoft, and then we communicate with our API, our spreadsheet banking API. We store that and we send it back securely to the add-in to say, cool, this person's logged in, they've got an Investic connection. They'll only get an Investic connection though once they have connected with Investic through the front end. So that's that middle blocky over there, the front end, which I'll show you in a moment. And all of that communicates with Investic there on the top, whether it's connecting their Investic account or retrieving account or transaction information. Looks very complicated, but I think many of you are very familiar with this kind of interaction between an authentication provider, the user in your own application, and Investic. So nothing terribly new here. Next slide. And then at around September last year, we had this idea of developing a place where we can store spreadsheet banking as well as other Investic powered applications like Spenco and possibly even other community developed applications. So Connector Hub is like a marketplace, at least that's what we would possibly like it to be, a place where people can upload and perhaps even host these applications that are dependent on the Investic API. And then, oh, thanks, Nick. There's the link. You can view it right now if you want. So the intention is for Connector to be a marketplace where people can see these applications. And currently it's just used like a sort of landing page where you can view spreadsheet banking or get linked to Spenco. So that's kind of where Connector Hub fits in right now. So not to throw you off, we're not demoing Connector Hub, we're demoing spreadsheet banking, which happens to live on Connector Hub. Okay, next slide. Okay, demo time. So now I'm going to attempt to share my screen. I'm going to put you guys over here. And use this other camera. Oh, host has disabled screen sharing. Okay. Yeah, there we go. Okay, can you guys see my screen?
Oh, that looks pretty.
Great, that's spreadsheet back. No, I'm kidding. That's California, I think. Okay, all right. So if you head on over to Connector Hub, you'll be presented with this landing page. And this basically just presents you with spreadsheet banking and Spenco. Spenco links to Spenco, and you're welcome to check that out if you'd like. But spreadsheet banking, if you click this get started, it will just give you some instructions on what you're going to be doing. So the first thing you're going to be doing is signing up with Microsoft. That can either be an org Microsoft account or a personal Microsoft account, which is quite handy. Of course, if you are using an org Microsoft account, you might need to get access from your admin to grant consent to spreadsheet banking. So just a heads up there. Let me sign in. I sign in with my P45 account. Okay, so now I'm signed in. This is like my dashboard, which just shows that I've got access to spreadsheet banking. In the future, signing into Connector Hub would maybe say, okay, get started with spreadsheet banking, or get started with this app, or get started with that app. But for now, it's just a landing page. And this shows me that I've got a connection to a PB Investic account. I could connect to CIB as well, But for now, we're just kind of zoning it to one realm at a time. Okay, I'm not going to reconnect and do the three-legged auth flow because this is not actually my investor account. It's like a test account that Platform 45 has. So now, once you have connected to Investic, you can then click this button to download the add-in, and it'll take you to Microsoft, where this add-in is hosted on Microsoft App Source. And that little link, just to get you here to a hosted add-in, there's a whole lot of work that went into this. Okay, to become a Microsoft Verified Publisher is no quick task, and that's not a learning I can summarize in a day or two. We had a lot of people at Platform 45 help with this. Actually submitting the add-in itself is the easy part. It's all the admin and stuff behind the scenes. But it's great once it's there, because once you've got it there, you deploy your code. It's deployed with Azure. It's just a React application that's like serving the stuff statically, and Microsoft just points to the URL, which is super basic. Anyway, so a user will come here and hopefully they'll click get it now because they see it's free. Let's just confirm some of the details. Do some loading. Cue elevator music. Okay, great. So Microsoft is like, great, this is Stephen from Platform 45. Why don't you open up your Excel? And once you do this, we'll sideload spreadsheet banking in that spreadsheet for you. So cue elevator music. Should have recorded some elevator music. Okay, there we go. Cool, so it creates a new spreadsheet for me. But you don't need to only work in this spreadsheet, okay? At the top right over here, you see it's added this command button in my command ribbon to access spreadsheet banking. So I can reload the add-in like that, or if it's closed, I can open it like that. And all this is just a little React application. This is essentially a little browser, this task pane. And it shows me that I'm connected to the private account, and I can do very simple things with spreadsheet banking. It's incredibly simple. You guys might even roll your eyes, it's so simple. Okay, all you can do is you can create an accounts table, which just creates a table that lists the accounts I have access to. So one is essentially a card account, and the other two are two savings accounts. So this first account will have more transactions. These other two you'll see are basically just test savings accounts. I can delete the table, so the add-in reads that table because it's got a unique name. And then transaction tables, here you can do a little bit more. You can ask for transactions for the past 30 days, which is what it will default to, the past 60 days or the past 90 days. And you can select what columns you'd like your transactions tables to be populated with. So I'm just going to select everything for now. And it should create one table per account that I have. There you go. So there's the first one that's created. It's got these transaction IDs, which we create in our API, just so that when you refresh this transactions table, we don't duplicate transactions, which I'll show you in a moment. We've got the account number, transaction date, the realm, description, card number, credit amount. So basically just the most common properties that people want to access on their transaction history. Once you've done that, you can view the columns that you have selected, but at this moment you can't update them. We're somewhat limited by the Office.js API. If you want to update this, you'd have to delete the table and recreate it. So we're trying to find a way around that. And you can refresh this table. So this isn't going to do anything now because I don't have any new transactions. I just created this. But what this would do is it would read the latest date of the latest transaction and then make a request to get any new transactions from that date until today. And it would update each one of these tables for me. Yeah. So that's spreadsheet banking in a nutshell. Like I said, it's very simple. It's essentially a one-way stream. It's just getting your transaction information, putting it in your spreadsheet. But the use case that this is really solved for some investor clients is there are some clients that have access to over 40 Investic accounts. And what they're doing currently manually is they're downloading manually every day CSVs just to see, what are the new transactions for this account, and doing some accounting on that, doing some recon. And now for them, this allows them to have one spreadsheet, one source of truth, click a button once a day, refresh, get the new transactions, and ship the spreadsheet off to someone on accounts. So for people with those kind of use cases, it really speeds it up. This could be integrated with a sort of budgeting thing in the future, but that's still in the pipeline. So before I speak about one more thing, are there any questions about this? Thanks, Hennie. Anything you'd like me to explain or take you through?
What is the future of this actually looking like? So you've spoken about what you want to be building. Is there anything else that you guys going to be building on further on this, or would if you had to, what would it look?
Well, from very early on, we had the idea of templates, where maybe you could create a template over here for budgeting or something, which reads the data that you get from these tables and populates that template, and then maybe shows you pie charts of what you're spending on this or whatever it is. And Dom is actually helping us investigate some solutions for that. So yeah, that might be the next step. We've had some people say, it's nice just being able to read my data, but it would be nice to have spreadsheet banking assess the data or categorize the data in some way. But for now, we're just trying to optimize it, get it easy to use, test with some investigator clients, see what they request. So something like the date selector, when you create the tables, that was quite important because some people don't need transactions for the past 90 days. They only need for the past 30 days. And so they just create it, and then that spreadsheet just looks once for them. Yeah. Any other questions?
Yeah, thanks. This looks great. I'm new to the community, so it's definitely something that I'll play with. The question is it desktop based? So you need to have desktop Excel open, or can it run on a cloud spreadsheet somewhere?
Yeah, so it can run on a cloud spreadsheet. I think I've got the add-in loaded in this spreadsheet. So this is my browser. And if you go insert add-ins, yeah, there we go. There we go. Yeah. So it works here. The platform it's supposed to work in, but we're having trouble with, is on the iPad native Excel app. We're running into some issues there. And Hennie has helped me debug. We're getting various authentication errors with Microsoft. It would be great if people can, use it on the desktop, use it in their browser, use it on their tablet. But at least desktop and browser is two platforms. It's one more than what we had before.
Yeah, that's great. Well done.
Hennie, you have a question, and then Dom.
Yes, so Stephen skimmed over or mentioned something that I think I just wanted to highlight. The fact that we can allow one of the major concerns for especially corporate clients were that there's quite sensitive company information in these spreadsheets. So and the leakage of that information was quite a concern. So the fact that you can use your Microsoft org account and have all your DLP, all your data governance in terms of that organization was quite a big win for us in terms of allowing, so not only allowing for personal accounts, but also allowing for those orgs, so that you can manage that data and the data leakage and all that data governance is basically done from an organization perspective. Obviously not as pertinent for private individuals, but for corporates and for businesses, it was a major deal.
Thanks, Hennie.
Dom, do you have a question?
So firstly, Stephen, I see you using Arc. Well done. I love the Arc.
That's awesome.
So like I think you've posted in the community comms before about the ICIB and the tokens and things like that, and I know the pain points that you've gone through in terms of just like like you mentioned, getting your add-on to the store and, you know, the whole pain points of Microsoft. But apart from that, what was your biggest, as a team, what was your biggest challenge that you guys faced in terms of either development or non-development, you know, while you guys were building this add-on?
That's a good question. Our own failures as developers. I just say that because developers sometimes, yeah, make some really dumb mistakes, and it makes our own life more difficult. But I think something that's been a challenge, and this is actually part of the learnings that I wanted to share in the next slide, but you don't have to share the slide now. I could just kind of speak off the cuff about it. There's quite a difference between PB and CIB, quite a big difference. Yes, in the response objects, but also I think in the way the data is being served is optimized. So the Investic API is essentially just a proxy between Investic's internal APIs and systems and data stores and users in the public. And they're just serving that through. But what we found with CIB clients who usually have a lot more transactions per account than private users might have a few hundred transactions in a month, whereas these corporates could have a few hundred transactions per day, amounting to a few thousand in a 3-month period. There were some bottlenecks in the queries we were making such that our API was timing out. There were some requests that were taking more than 30 seconds. And we thought, shucks, okay, how do we get past this? Devin helpfully pointed out that CIB has pagination, unlike PB. So when you make a request for your transactions, you get some metadata. So like total pages for this account's transactions could be, let's say, 10 pages, and each page has 100 transactions on. So if there are 10 pages, you know that there are up to 1,000 transactions. And so, you know, if you make one request at a time, that could help. But it was still taking 30 seconds per request, even though we were only asking for 100 transactions, until we used a date range. When we said, okay, instead of giving me the past 90 days transactions with the first page, give me just the first day's transactions and all the pages. That was a lot quicker. That was like 2 or 3 seconds, because it was just a few hundred transactions on that one day. So what we realized is that there's a bit of a bottleneck when it comes to the pagination on the CIB transactions to endpoints. And we're hoping to enter into discussions with Investic to see if that's something that they can optimize on the way that they're querying their data, not the Investic API team. Like I said, they're just serving this data as they get it, you know? So yeah, that was a bit of a problem, because with the one test account, there were like 17,000 transactions within a 90-day period. And we just couldn't do anything about it, you know? So with the one client, they've got 200 transactions a day. So when they create a spreadsheet, we're only giving them 1 day's worth of transactions. And if they refresh and it's been a week, then we're trying to get them 1,400 transactions, and the app might fall over. So that's been our biggest challenge, and is currently the next hurdle we're trying to get over. Everything else, the Investic API team has been amazing to accommodate us and answer our questions and get us over our own misunderstandings of the API. But yeah, so now I've completed my presentation for answering your question. I hope that makes sense.
Thanks, guys. The whole P45 team, you've done a really great job of just keeping this project alive and keeping it going. So it's awesome, well done. And the things you've done is really cool, so well done. If anyone has any sort of questions around it, please feel free to use the chats. Stephen and Craig are still in the session, so they're here for you guys. Yeah, guys, thanks. Appreciate it.
Nick Buertes, so could you elaborate on that question you asked in the chat? I'm curious.
Oh, right, yes.
You mentioned that some clients are worried about data leak or a breach of sort, but I noticed there is some censorship of the data. Obviously, it's not encrypted, but I mean, is the most sensitive thing just that metadata of who this client is paying, or is it like the PII of the name of the account?
So it's more that what they're paying, what the balances of the accounts are, etc.
Okay.
So obviously some corporates like banks are quite finicky in terms of data that is exposed or potentially exposed.
Yeah, sorry if I can just quickly also speak to that. With CIB response objects, you get this reference 1, reference 2, reference 3, all those different columns, and one of them for the one investor client allows them to know, I think, which client paid them. And so for some internal purposes, they wanted to know that. But for some other people within their team, they didn't want them to know that. They didn't want them to know that. That's why you can select the columns that you want when you create these tables.
Guys, again, if there's any more questions, please feel free to use the chat and Slack and everything else. So well done. Before we get on to the next sort of demo, I've been asked to quickly just explain something, kind of walk us through something very easy and very cool as some use cases for virtual cards. So what is virtual cards? Kind of why is it important, but it's actually pretty cool because that's a lot of work that Hennie and the team have been doing, putting into virtual cards. You would think it's pretty simple. It's really not. So we'll walk very quickly through that. So just to give you guys an example, what are virtual cards? Well, virtual cards, as we all know, are digital versions of a physical card. They're just like a regular card or debit card, but they're just in a digital form. But they come with some very cool things, like your security. There's better security on them. It's more easier to use and spin up. And then also it makes managing our expenses a lot more easier. As we've seen with programmable cards, virtual cards does the exact same thing. And so with the merging of programmable cards with virtual cards, you can see how stuff gets really cool very, very quickly. There are two types of virtual cards for those flavors that it comes in. So you get the single-use ones, which kind of act as a one-time sort of movie ticket that you just use and burn. And then, of course, you get the multi-use cards, which are basically like a library card, just don't have your main details, your primary account details on it, but you can still get things with it. So that's actually pretty cool. But they do come with a bit of a risk. So virtual cards aren't used by all the merchants everywhere yet. And then, of course, they're always vulnerable to getting hacked by the actual system itself, like MasterCard and Visa. And anyway, where those cards are stored is one of the risks around virtual cards. But we all know that we live in the digital space, so we know what the risks are. This is actually where it gets pretty cool. Is that some cool use cases of what exactly is it that we can use virtual cards for? So the first up is the most basic one, is managing our expenses. So if you're an owner or a company or you work for a company, you know how hard managing your expenses are. With virtual cards, it's easier to track and control them. There's also, it makes it easier to put into a digital wallet, to pay other people, to use a digital wallet and all currency. And then, of course, from a bookings point of view, for your travels, it's far better to use a virtual card when you're booking for overseas sort of trips and dodgy sort of places. You're not too sure if they're going to take your card details. So virtual cards are really helpful there. One of the cool things is that virtual cards are very popular. They're the most popular within the shopping, the subscription spaces, and travel booking. So those are the main sort of trends where you'll find virtual card usage the most. And funny enough, when I was looking into this, the largest markets in whole Africa around virtual cards is, of course, it's South Africa, it's Nigeria, and Kenya, which has the best sort of banking whole structures in Africa. So it makes sense that those three would actually be the biggest sort of whole users and proponents of virtual cards, which is actually pretty interesting. Where's the future of kind of thing? So I was trying to guess and trying to imagine what the future of this would actually look like. What is the future of virtual cards? It's pretty straightforward. But I think if you look at it from a banking trend point of view over time, it actually is. It kind of makes things more easier. It integrates a lot of your finances and makes more frictionless to pay stuff, to transact and stuff. And it kind of comes back to that whole idea of us making this whole ambient sort of banking. So banking, you don't think about, transacting in a custom experience way that you don't think about, with the added advantage of better digital, security on top of everything. So that's really, I think, the future is headed in. So, and to back it up, I found a source that stated in 2023 they expected that virtual cards, because of the digital banking, that virtual cards are the forefront of the revolution for the whole business expense management. So using programmable banking with virtual cards really makes some really phenomenal things. So if you guys, I'd really love to get your viewpoints on it. So what do you think are some really cool use cases for virtual cards? I know Hennie has some really cool work, like a canary in the mine, so yeah, sort of thing. He's got a cool use case. I don't know if you wanted to share it here with the group. But if you guys have anything.
No, for sure. I was thinking the other day, it would be cool to create a virtual card as almost like a honeypot, and tokenize it onto the phone. So use it as a default, and then with programmable card, I then trigger off either with Twilio or with Telegram. So if that card gets used for spend, I am obviously in trouble. So let's say I get taken, and I need to or I need to buy, or I know you can't do I don't think you can do at the ATMs currently draw money, but if I had to use that card, that would trigger off or trip switch, and I could notify my loved ones to say, okay, I'm in a bit of a pickle. It obviously knows my GPS. Set that as a default, and then actually use another virtual card or something else for actual payments, because I know that I choose the third one in the list or the second one in the list to actually make payments. So that was one almost paranoia one that I wanted to use for myself.
Yeah, I don't know if that's because I live in South Africa or that whole Joburg sort of thing, but I like that idea. It's a really cool idea, but that's actually pretty sad at the very same time, because I think it's a cool idea. So,
It's actually been
yeah.
used in spy scenarios with the Ukrainians at the moment.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, they've got that kind of mechanism with their payments system at the moment. It's quite elaborate, but they're trying to prevent the Russian hackers.
Actually pretty interesting. Cool. Thanks, man. Guys, if you have any other use cases that you think are pretty cool, that you think would it impact your personal life or your company, please feel free to put it into the chat, into Slack. We'd really love to hear it, because we're always trying to figure out, the point of the community is to find out these cool ideas and to see who wants to and how to build it and how to put it together. So yeah. Hennie's got some cool thing he wants to show. Hennie, you ready with your thing?
Cool. Yeah. So I just wanted to I think purpose while we in development and taking some card endpoints or virtual card endpoints into production, maybe get some feedback from the community, and also in terms of what else we can look at. We are hoping to take the creation and the viewing of virtual card endpoints during this month, after the powers that be have scrutinized, especially from a PCI perspective. So yeah, so Nick and I share.
Yeah, you should be able to. Double check.
Let's try.
Thank you for sure.
Show it if you can see. Share.
Yeah, spinning up.
Oh, I see.
Cool. So very quick demo. So I'm just so there's basically just two endpoints that we're going to expose. One is for the creation of the virtual card, and the other one is, and there's two variations of it to get the details of that card. So let me quickly just authenticate. This is currently in our non-prod environment. So I get a token, just normal stock standard. I then obviously can get the cards, but the main thing is I'll just go for the card details first. So I can get the card details. I created the virtual card earlier. That will give me all the details and non-sensitive. So basically masked then I want this is slow. The masked card number, the emboss name, the active status or not, and if this is a virtual card, you'll notice that there's the extended details that's null. In order for us to be PCI compliant, we don't want to expose the sensitive information like the unmasked bands, the expiry date, and especially CVV through the entire stack. So what we like ons braai. Nou gaan ons braai. So we've allowed for the ability to get the sensitive information by providing an RSA key. So you create in your client application, you create a RSA key pair, send us the modulus and the modulus and the exponent, and then we will then right at the back, so basically as close to the data as possible, create that or encrypt the data, send it all the way back without touching sites, any logs, etc. And then the clients on the client side, you then use your private key to decrypt. Showing this in action. So basically, I've got a pre-script. I'm just using a open source library to create to do RSA encryption. It creates the private public key. It extracts the modulus and the exponent, and then just literally just adds that to the body, and then asks for the card detail. That will then go, like I said, go all the way into the underlying host system from a card perspective, encrypt it in memory, and then send the encrypted payload back to the calling application. As soon as this is done, so you'll see there's an extended details, card number, expiry date, CVV, and then as a test script, all I'm doing is I'm decrypting that data, just not done the CVV here, and then basically printing that out too. So that's the clear text card number, the CVV, and then the expiration date, if you wanted to, the CVV as well. So the nice thing about it is none of the systems will ever need to be PCI compliant or get scrutinized apart from the actual calling application where you as a client are requesting for those details. And then just lastly, to create a virtual card is just a post to the endpoint. It's with the account number. Obviously the cards get associated to those private bank or those Investec account numbers, and let's hope the demo gods are with us. So we'll create hopefully we create a virtual card. Hopefully I haven't exceeded my limit. Okay, cool. So virtual card created.
That's cool.
It just gives the card key. I don't see the mask card number there, but that's probably something on my side. And yeah, so now I can ask for that detail. Let's say get card details. And hopefully that will bring out all the information. While that executes, I think just from a limitations perspective, because Investec is piloting this out to the market, from a private client perspective, there's only a limit of five virtual cards per account. There is, so that's at this stage that's the hard limitation. Whether that was going to be lifted, and I assume that will be lifted or extended into more cards, I think only time will tell in terms of the uptake and the requests from clients. But so that use once use case that Nick mentioned is probably not in the cards for now, unless you want to use once your five available virtual cards. But yeah, so that's the long and the short of it. And yeah, so there's the CVV or the card number, etc.
That's very cool.
Cool. And luckily it worked. So sort of.
Oh, really great. So you mentioned that it's going to be you still running it through the security pen testing and all of those sort of guys. So
Yeah.
you don't have really a viewpoint of when it will be out, sort of.
So I'm personally pushing very hard to get this within the month of July to get this out. But yeah, so obviously you guys will be most likely be the first to know as soon as it goes live.
Awesome, thanks, man. And Peter, you have a question?
Yeah, you said you can create a maximum of 5 at the moment. Can you also delete cards?
At this stage, no. So you can only create, and I think that's so in order for you to delete okay, let me just go one step back. Because of the visa rules, you can actually never delete a card. You can only soft block it or stop the card, because all those transactions are associated to the card, and from an audit perspective, those transactions and tokens, etc., need to be stored. So you can basically only soft block them. Whether that's going to change going forward, I think we're going to get a lot of learnings in terms of the use cases and how our clients are using it. We've already got some corporate clients saying their use cases, 5 cards is not feasible for them. So the guys are looking at use cases and what guys are wanting to use it for, so to extend the offering. Cool.
Guys, if you have any more things for Hennie, please feel free to use the chat to get involved there. I know we're running just a little bit smidgen over time, but we just have a quick community update that I think you guys will really enjoy. That's actually pretty interesting. But yeah, so let me just get to it very quickly here. And just share the screen. I think Aretha is going to walk us through some really cool things that we've been doing. Right. Just, oh, there we go.
You really hyped me up, Nick.
Yeah, I did.
So as you guys know, or some of you might be too new to know, but in Q1, we ran a big community survey to get an idea of what you guys needed, in terms of tools and resources. We got feedback on the community wiki, as well as the developer portal. So I think Investix can be talking about the developer portal and the changes they've been doing on their side next time. But on our side, we've been working to upgrade the community wiki. So we now have a brand new sparkly community wiki. So thank you so much for the feedback on the survey. So we actually listened to what you said and we went and did the work. So some of the things that you can see we've updated is we've updated the navigation to make the resources more findable. We've also Dom helped us to create a series of quick start guides, both on the API as well as the Programmable Banking card. And you'll find videos and written tutorials to help you. The goal there is to get you up and running quickly. And then we've also created a new page which highlights the most useful community libraries and tools, so it's easy for you to go and find them. And the goal here is that you can use these libraries to get building faster. And then so a huge thanks to those community members who've created these tools and the libraries, and then also have committed to maintaining them for the community. Dom has also helped us to create some sample apps. So the goal with the sample apps is to have an easy way to quickly see the capabilities of the different features of the API and the Programmable Banking cards. So you can quickly get them up and running within 5 minutes and take a look at how, for example, the beneficiary payments API works. And then also if you want to build something with it, you can then go and steal bits of code to get you started. And then Shanna, who's not here tonight, unfortunately, she also created a whole lot of new business use cases. So you guys can go and see how different businesses are actually using Programmable Banking. So for example, one card used it to prevent fraud from their shoppers. We have other businesses like African Alliance using it for team spend management and expense management and reconciliation. And you can maybe get some ideas about how you want to use it in your business. If you are also interested in pitching Programmable Banking to your business, get in touch with us and we can also help you think it through as well. And then lastly, we've also worked to create community FAQs. So we've taken a look at what the most commonly asked questions are. So these are technical FAQs of what people are asking, and collated a community resource so you can go and get those answers easily. And obviously this is going to be a revolving document, evolving and revolving. So as the product is updated, we'll be able to see what new questions are coming up, and we'll keep the document up to date. And so, as I said, thanks to everyone who's given us the input so that we can make this better. And we built this for you guys. So there will be some requests for feedback coming out next week. You'll see it. So please also go and take a look, give us the feedback and see how we can improve, what we've missed, where we could be better, or what you actually liked. And then also have fun. It's a community repo, so you guys can actually contribute to it as well. So we've had a few pull requests. So if you see something that you don't like, or even if it's a tiny typo, or you have some content you'd like to create, also get in touch with us. But as I said, it's a resource for you guys. So please let us know what you think. Otherwise, thanks.
Yeah, definitely, thanks. Because I saw Peter already, he joined the community and already gave some feedback on it, so that was cool. Guys, and the feedback form for tonight's events, I'll pick out a random, super random as usual, person to win some swag. We got a lot of swag to give away, so yeah, we would really love your feedback. There are one or more sort of questions that are normal, but we want to dig into the community a little bit more and get kind of get your feedback on stuff. So yeah, if you can take 3 to 4 minutes, just fill in the form, we'd really appreciate that, and it will help the community get better and stronger and cooler as it goes on. And again, a big thank you very much to everyone, the demos, Dom, Stephen, Hennie, all the guys who got involved tonight to put together some really cool demos and to just share their learnings around what they've been building has been really great to see. So thank you very much for that. Guys, that's the end of our formal agenda. If you want to stick around, if you want to chat some more, that's also cool. But yeah, I think we've held you up for long enough. Guys, thank you very much for your time. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Nick.
Thanks.
Yeah, thanks, Nick. Thanks, guys.
Thanks,
Good to
Nick.
see you
Very
guys.
much.
Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, everyone.
Cheers,
See
guys.
you around.
So.
Thanks.
Bye.
Thanks.
Sure. Sure. Cool.
Hennie,
Yes.
in terms of the naming scheme on the results on those virtual cards,
Yes.
when do those get solidified? Just to
After you've given me your feedback.
okay, cool. Because yeah, I'll chat to you about them on Wednesday. But
Cool.
I am cool.
We'll find out more and share it.
Yeah, that's I think that's one of the main reasons I wanted to just show the alpha / working prototype, to get feedback, to get.
Yeah.
I would have thought that also the PIN question would come up in terms of why can't I get my PIN there as well? It's sensitive, it's not encrypted. At this stage, guys are nervous. And I think for me, virtual card, the use case for PIN is probably not that big a deal. Well, that's the assumption. CVV and expiry date, card number, those are, from a virtual card perspective, I think probably front and center.
And yeah, sorry, go for it, Nick.
No, I was just thinking like that deleting a virtual card, because it's actually pretty interesting. I was just checking on FNB, and I don't think I can delete a virtual card on FNB either, which is actually pretty interesting. Yeah. So
I remember.
yeah, sorry.
Sorry for interrupting. I remember a person that was teaching me about databases, and they basically said to me that there's no such thing as a delete. It's marked as deleted, but it's not deleted in the database. And I can tell you how many times that has saved me.
It's a fair point. Fair point.
But then Poppy comes along and says, you've got the right to be forgotten. And you can, or GDPR, and then you can ask that it gets actually deleted.
But what about financial records? Financial records have got a time limit.
Yes, they've got a 7-year. So there's limits, statutory limits that you're going to bump in, but those data then needs to be basically masked, so that they can't be associated to you anymore. But yeah, you're right. It's interesting. It's very interesting.
I remember seeing the value of the European laws when we had a mailing list of 40,000 people at a business I was at, and we had a interaction level that was less than 1% and on the newsletters. And then when we had to clean it up for the European law, our interaction on the newsletter went through the roof because we were actually sending it to people that wanted it. So the laws may be not welcome, but I saw their value.
No, 100%. 100%.
You're talking about the 5 limit. Is the 5 card limit more like a proof of concept limit, and you're going to improve on it over time, or?
That is the hope. I think from a business perspective, there's obviously not specifically from a visa perspective, but generally from a tokenization, there is some interesting costs involved in terms of tokenizing cards, which the business pay for. So I think the main thing is especially our community, as well as some of the clients have been nagging to get this feature sorted. So I think there's a bit of a nervousness in terms of where this could be taken. So as with all things, I think that the launches into the market, see what the adoption is, see what the how it gets used, etc., and then those limits. My gut sense is that they will be relaxed. By how much, I don't know. And yeah, so there's quite a lot of functionality still on the cards from a Visa perspective on those cards that we will then will launch as soon as we can.
Yeah, it's always interesting because I've dealt with white label gift cards quite a bit, and now seeing this as virtual is actually very exciting.
I've reached my limit.
All right, take care. I'll
Cool.
see you
Sweet,
guys
man.
soon.
Cheers, Jason.
Cheers.
Cool. Yeah. I mean, from my side, Hennie, I'll probably just chat to you on Wednesday. I just want to ask you about like like scopes, given like one can get the the details, and so I'll probably just ask you a bit about the scopes and
Okay.
but yeah, we can have that. I'll go through some of the other stuff and have some questions on Wednesday.
Okay, cool.
Oh, and then randomly, I know you weren't in the office when I brought one, but I got those Rust boards.
Okay, cool.
So it's a little ESP Rust. So therefore, largely there's like a programming course with Rust and ESP, and they had these boards specifically made for them. So I've got an extra 4. So,
that's very cool. Must play.
Yeah, I'll bring you one to have a look at.
Awesome.
That's cool.
Yeah. Cool. Well, yeah, thanks for the meetup. It was really cool. Nice to see the virtual cards in progress.
Mm.
Soon. I mean, I think there's a lot of use cases.
Yeah.
I'm hoping there's a lot of use cases.
Yeah, I think guys just need to imagine how to use virtual cards and program banking together. I think there's something there, but we just haven't linked.
I think those two are lack a combination, because you've got so much flexibility in terms of what you can do. Sweet.
Cool.
I'm going to drop.
Yeah,
cool.
I'm going to drop too. So guys, thank you very much. Have an awesome day. I'll see you later. Okay.
Well, cheers.
Cheers. Guys.
Cheers.
Bye.